Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really fascinating, almost unexpectedly profound piece of writing. It's called Relevant Doormats, and it was written by Oluyomi Ola David. Over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack her words. We'll explore how she so masterfully bridges this gap between deep, poetic reflection and hard-hitting global policy. I really want you to keep her unique perspective in mind as we go through this, because the way she builds her arguments is just brilliant. It's definitely going to challenge how you think about foundational work.
So, what exactly makes a doormat relevant? It's kind of a strange, almost contradictory pairing of words, right? I mean, when we think of a doormat, we usually picture something meant to be stepped on, something ignored, something literally defined by being at the bottom of the pile. But right from the jump with that title, Relevant Doormats, she completely flips that expectation on its head. She's inviting us to solve this puzzle right alongside her, asking us to reconsider the incredible value of things and maybe even people that we might otherwise completely overlook.
Which brings us to Section 1, the doormat metaphor. She takes this super everyday concept and turns it into this profound symbol. To see how she does this, just take a look at these lines with me. Hopeful servant gets a golden crown, and repentant heart obtains tender mercy. Notice her deliberate pacing there. See, for her, the doormat isn't about humiliation. It's not about being taken advantage of. She is directly assigning these massive, elevated rewards, like a golden crown or tender mercy, to states of being that require intense humility. The servant, the repentant heart, these are her human doormats. They willingly lower themselves, and in her view, that steady, humble service is exactly why they get elevated in the end.
Let's move on to Section 2. Individual virtues and vices.
Okay, so she doesn't just leave us floating in this abstract realm of metaphors. She zooms in on the micro level, giving us a really powerful juxtaposition about the actual choices we make every single day. On one side, she writes, honest poverty gets a good reward. And then on the other, impatient error loses any chance. Just let that contrast sink in for a second. The absolute key here is how she views time, patience, and integrity. In her framework, keeping your integrity, even if it means enduring what she calls honest poverty, is a foundational strength. It eventually pays off. On the flip side, rushing ahead, making an impatient error, well, that just destroys the foundation entirely. She really believes that enduring integrity will always outlast the quick, hasty mistakes we tend to make when we just aren't willing to be humble.
Now, zooming back out, we hit Section 3, the lazy nation.
We are pulling the lens way back now, going from the micro level of individual hearts all the way up to national economics. And honestly, this is where we find arguably her most biting critique. She contrasts the hardworking ant who consults humble history with the lazy nation that counts on crude barrel. This is such a fascinating jump from poetic philosophy straight into economic policy. She is directly calling out nations that just rely on natural resources, like a barrel of crude oil, without putting in the foundational, historical groundwork of true development. The ant, which is a classic symbol of small, humble diligence, is positioned as vastly superior to a whole nation that refuses to do the hard work. It is a really striking indictment of resource dependency.
Next up is Section 4, where doormats shine.
So, if this kind of humility and diligence is required for both the individual and the nation, where exactly does this all play out? Well, she lists these locations in a very specific, deliberate progression. Listen to this. Across borders, city walls, village squares, temple courts, households. What she's doing here is brilliantly scaling her message. She's proving that these virtues, this doormat mentality of humble service and steady foundation, they matter absolutely everywhere. They're just as critical in the private intimacy of our own homes as they are out in the public arena of village squares, from the sacred spaces of temple courts all the way up to international borders. There's literally no space in human society where her idea of foundational humility isn't needed.
And that brings us to the concluding two words of her poem, doormats shine. It's a total paradox. I mean, doormats are meant to be covered in dirt, right? Yet she claims they shine. This is the ultimate summary of her whole worldview. Those humble foundations, the honest workers, the repentant hearts, the diligent ants, they are the true sources of light and progress in all those spaces we just talked about. By doing the hard, often totally unglamorous work, they are the ones who actually illuminate the world around them.
Finally, let's look at Section 5. Meet Oluyomi Ola David.
To truly grasp the weight of these words, we kind of need to understand the mind behind them. Oluyomi Ola David proudly identifies as a Nigerian. In her own words, she declares this profound love for people, and she notes that she is deeply,
deeply concerned with global development and transformation. Knowing this context, it completely changes how we read her poem. When she critiques a lazy nation counting on a crude barrel, she isn't just writing some abstract verse. She is speaking directly from her perspective as a global development advocate who is incredibly invested in the real-world trajectory of resource-rich nations. You can really see how her professional bio links straight back to her art. She notes that she enjoys generating solutions, influencing policy or strategy, and providing clarity. So the big takeaway here is that her poetry is actually a vehicle for this exact mission. She is taking these deep moral lessons about honesty, patience, and humility, and she's actively applying them to generate real-world policy solutions. She's providing absolute clarity on why nations succeed or fail, essentially arguing that economic strategy is, at the end of the day, rooted in our moral character.
And this leads us to the emotional and philosophical core of her work, which we find in this super powerful quote from her biography. "My Father God owns and rules the universe. He is the wheel within my wheels." That right there is the ultimate engine behind her drive. It reveals the deep, unwavering faith that fuels her entire mission for transformation. Her belief in a higher guiding order is what gives her the absolute confidence to advocate for those doormat virtues, because she knows they're aligned with a much greater universal truth.
Wow, we have covered some incredible ground today exploring Oluyomi Ola David's unique and honestly challenging perspective. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder based on her insights. In the push for global development, are we building hardworking ants or lazy nations? It's a tough question, but it demands we look at both our personal lives and our massive national policies. She has given us a totally new framework for evaluating progress, humility, and purpose. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this deep dive sparked your curiosity and leaves you wanting to explore more of how poetry and policy can so brilliantly intertwine.